So remember, there's two things that motivate your dog to come to you. The first is getting a reward, a treat, praise, pets. And the second thing that motivates your dog to come is to escape from or to avoid something unpleasant. And you shouldn't use either or, you should use both. And remember, the better your reward is, the less likely you'll have to correct your dog. It doesn't mean you won't still have to correct them occasionally, but just make sure your reward is really worth it. Another really important thing to remember about recalling your dog is don't say come unless you have a way of enforcing it. Every time you recall your dog and your dog ignores you and decides not to come and you don't do anything about it, they're more likely to do that again. So when you call your dog, have a plan and a strategy of what to do when they do come to you, reward them, and also what to do if they don't come to you. And we're gonna talk about that plan and that strategy in the video. So let's talk about how to call your dog. When you want your dog to come, you're gonna say their name and then come. Riley, come. Good. If your dog does come to you, then make sure you praise them. So you're gonna get really happy and excited. Good job, that's it. Riley, come. Good, there she is. Or you can say yes. Just remember, yes means they're getting a treat, right? So say something that tells your dog, that's what I want, and then reward them when they get to you. Riley, come. Yes! Oh, there she is! Now let's talk about if your dog doesn't come to you, if they ignore you. If your dog has been e-collar trained, then you can use the e-collar, so we're gonna cover that next. If your dog hasn't been e-collar conditioned with us, don't use the e-collar with them, right? So if your trainer has not shown you how to use this tool, then don't go out and buy one and use it, okay? But if your dog's been e-collar trained, then. So first you're gonna call your dog, Fido, come. You're gonna give them a chance to respond, about 1 second. And if within 1 second they're still ignoring you, then you're gonna say no, and you're gonna start pressing the button. You're gonna start tapping it, and this is really, really important, keep repeating come, right? So it's Fido, come, Fido, come, Fido, come. One of the biggest mistakes we see people make with the e-collar is they'll start pressing the button, but they won't say anything. And this can confuse some dogs, right? Because they're feeling the stim, but they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. So your dog needs more information, more communication than just the e-collar stem. So that's why, really, really important. If you don't remember anything from this video except this, just remember this. If you're pressing the button on the e-collar, continue repeating your dog's name and come. You're gonna do this until your dog starts to move in your direction. All right, so as soon as they're coming towards you, don't keep pressing the button, all right? You're gonna stop pressing it and then start praising them. Riley, come. No. Riley, come. Good, there she is, yes! Now, another part of the recall that's really important is that once your dog comes back to you, they should stay with you. They shouldn't just come back and then leave right away. They need to wait until you release them. Good, there she is. Yes, nice, yes. Oh, good girl. Yes, oh, good girl, yeah. Okay, free. So if your dog is getting into this habit of coming back and then staying with you for a second and then just going off and doing something else, start saying wait when they arrive. They don't have to sit. They just have to come within a pretty close proximity of you. You'll say wait, and then again, start rewarding them. It can be helpful to jackpot your dog here. So you'll say wait, and when they're waiting there with you, good, start giving them treats or just keep petting them. And then again, the recall is not complete until you release them. So eventually at some point, tell them, okay, free, and then they can run off and go do whatever they want. Riley, come. Good girl, yeah, mama. Nice job, very good. Good work. No. Riley, come. Riley, come. Good girl. Yeah. Good girl. No. Riley, come. Good. Wait. Good. 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 Okay, free. If your dog starts to come back towards you, but then they don't come all the way, or let's say they veer off and get distracted and go off and do something else, then you're gonna say no, start pressing the button again and repeating come, their name and come, until they start moving in your direction. Just remember, as long as your dog is moving in your direction, whether they're walking towards you or running, it doesn't matter. As long as they're moving towards you, don't press the button. The same goes if your dog runs past you, right? So let's say they start running towards you, but then they fly by. Same thing. Right as they pass you, no, turn and face them. Start repeating come, pressing the button until they come back. One other thing to mention here is you might not have to tap the button multiple times. If you say no, you tap the button and your dog immediately starts to come back to you. There's no need to continue pressing it. So some dogs, you might only have to press it once. Also, your trainer might tell you not to tap the button multiple times, and instead they might tell you just to tap it once, because some dogs, tapping it repeatedly can be too much for them. It can kind of overwhelm them, especially if you're using it at a higher level. So if your trainer tells you, hey, your dog's chasing a squirrel, turn the collar up, say come, they don't come, press it once, because at a really high level, if you press that button multiple times, some dogs, it can kind of put them into a panic. So talk to your trainer about that. They'll probably go over this with you. But again, there's no need to press it multiple times if your dog responds right away. So remember, although we're talking about using the e-collar stim, don't forget about the other forms of communication that can help your dog understand what they're supposed to do. And one of those is using your body. So some things that can help dogs as you're pressing the button or as you're calling them is to move backwards. So you would be like, Fido, come, Fido, come. And the other thing is to extend your hand out like this and kind of bend down. We do a lot of this when we're luring dogs with food in our hands. So a lot of times when your dog sees you do this, they understand, oh, this is what I need to do. Riley, come. Oh, good girl, yeah. Now let's talk about what level on the e-collar you should use. This is different for every dog, and your trainer will go over that. Some dogs are more sensitive and you want to use a lower level. Some dogs are less sensitive. You want to use a higher level. And also, the level will depend on the situation. So if your dog is in a high distraction environment, or if they're really distracted by something, you might have to use a higher level than your normal working level. Let's talk about tone of voice. When you call your dog, say it excitedly. If you say your dog's, if you recall your dog like this, Fido, come, there's a chance they either might not hear you or the command might not stand out enough. Your dog might not even identify that they're supposed to do something. So say it like, Fido, come, you know, in an upbeat, energetic tone. Say it loud so that you know you're positively certain that your dog heard you. Because remember, it's not fair to correct your dog with the e-collar if they didn't hear you in the first place. And this also goes for praising your dog. So when your dog starts to come back to you, talk to them in an excited tone there as well. Be like, yeah, super, that's it. You can move backwards. That will also motivate them. The long line is also a really helpful tool for dogs that aren't super proficient with the e-collar, or if your dog isn't e-collar trained, then you would want to use a long line instead. You want to have a long line that's at least 15 feet. 30 feet is about the max, although 30 feet can be a little cumbersome and a little bit long. But a long line is just a really long leash. We prefer using a thin one, so it's lightweight, so your dog doesn't really feel that they have the line on. There's really two techniques we use when we're giving a leash correction. The first is a leash pop. So a leash pop is when you do a quick pop with the leash like that. So it's just a quick snap with the leash. And then the other technique we use is leash pressure, which means you're gonna continuously apply pressure on the leash, pulling your dog in the direction you want them to go. And then you're gonna release the pressure as soon as your dog starts to move in the right direction. Which technique you use, it depends on the situation. A leash pop is generally more to like really get your dog's attention, more for less sensitive dogs that aren't very sensitive, whereas leash pressure is used more as a helping tool. It's used to guide your dog. So we use this in conjunction with the e-collar. So if you're stimming your dog and they're getting confused, you might want to have a long line on them for a while so that when you're stimming them, you can also use leash pressure to give them more direction. Anytime you use the long line, whether you pop or whether you're using pressure, is move backwards. That's really gonna help your dog know what they're supposed to do. So if you give a pop, you're gonna say come, and then if they don't come, you're gonna say no, pop, and then move back right as you pop. All right, so pop, move backwards. Same if you're using leash pressure. You're pulling and you're moving backwards until your dog starts to come, and then you reward them. Yeah, super, yes, give them a treat. Riley, come. Yes! Oh! Riley, come. Good! Yes! If you correct your dog, make sure you've given them a chance already. So it would be very unfair if you said, Fido, come, no, and then you just corrected them right away, because you didn't even give your dog a chance to register what they're supposed to do. So we say about a second after calling them, if they haven't acknowledged you or responded in any way at that point, then it's fair, as long as your dog heard you and you said the command in the right tone of voice, then it's fair to correct them, but just give your dog a chance and don't correct them immediately after calling them. I'm sure many of you have watched everything up to this point and you're wondering, do I have to train like this forever? Every single time I recall my dog, do I have to give them a treat? Do I have to reward them? Can I just get to a point where I call my dog and expect that they come back and I don't have to always give them something? And the answer to that is yes, you can certainly move to that at some point, but we recommend for the first 2 weeks that your dog's home to train them like this. If they're not food motivated, then you can just reward them with praise or pets when they get to you. If your dog is food motivated, again, for the first couple weeks or so, we recommend rewarding them pretty frequently. Doesn't mean you should reward them every single time. You can randomize it, but pretty high reinforcement rate. And then after 2 weeks, if your dog's doing really well, they're very consistent about responding to you, coming back when you call them, then you can start to gradually decrease the amount of food rewards you're giving them. And eventually you can move to a point where you just call your dog, they come back, you say, good boy, good girl, you pet them, you release them, and it's okay to train like that. But if your dog's food motivated, it's not gonna make your recall worse if you're rewarding with food. It's only gonna make it better as long as you are using it as a reward and not as a bribe. So let's talk about the difference between bribing and rewarding. Bribing would be if you call your dog and they don't respond to you, and then you get a treat out and you show them the treat and then call them again, that technically is kind of like a bribe. So what's your dog learning? Your dog's learning, hey, if I ignore you, then you'll get a treat out. And then when I see you have a treat, oh, then I'll come to you because I know you have something. Charlie, come. Charlie, come. Charlie, come. Charlie, come. So make sure you're using the food as a reward, which means you're gonna call your dog. If they don't listen to you, you tell them no, you make them come back, and then when they come back, you mark good or yes and get the food out. That way, you're rewarding your dog after they've made the decision and the choice to come back so that they're not dependent on the food. If your dog isn't food motivated and you offer them food and they don't really care about it, or they just don't really like food, then you can always just reward them with praise and pets. Also, there is another way you can reward your dog other than food or praise and pets is with play. So play can mean with a toy. So if your dog likes the ball, dog comes back, yes, throw the ball for them. If your dog likes to play tug, yes, get the tug out. Or you can just play with your dog with your body using movement. Charlie, come. Oh, there he is! Wow! Wow, that's funny! Yeah, that's a good boy! Obviously, some dogs don't really care about this, and some dogs you don't want to do this with because it teaches them bad habits, like they'll start jumping on you or mouthing you. But if your dog doesn't do any of those things, you can reward them with movement. Another thought some of you guys might have is, well, won't doing this teach my dog to be reliant on the e-collar? Will I have to use the e-collar to get my dog to come back, right? Can I not have an e-collar on my dog and expect that they just listen to me because I called them? So remember, when you use the e-collar, you want to pair the stim with the word no. So always pair the e-collar stim with a command or with a marker or with something from your voice so that your dog thinks the collar's coming from you. Right? So you're making it a little bit more personal for them so that they're not responding to the e-collar, they're ultimately learning to respond to you, so that in the future, if you don't have the collar on your dog, you call them, they don't listen to you, you say, no, come. Your dog should come back if you've been consistent about using the e-collar in the right way. So again, part of this process is we're charging the word no, we're also charging come, so that those words, those sounds have more significance, more meaning to your dog. And then for some dogs, it is appropriate to correct them with something more personal, meaning you're gonna use what we call social pressure. So if you call your dog, they don't come, you're gonna say, no, come, and you're gonna make it kind of like personal to them. So you're making it clear, hey, I'm upset, I don't like what you're doing. And if you have that right relationship with your dog, if you have that right breed, and your trainer will go over whether it's appropriate to do this with your dog, that can be okay to do as well. However, we recommend always having the e-collar on your dog if you're ever going to take them out and about someplace where there's lots of distractions. The dog beach, an off-leash hike. If there's a chance a squirrel might pop up and run away and your dog has a lot of prey drive, if there's a bunch of dogs around, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So if you're home in your house and you've practiced recalls with the e-collar for a while, your dog's really good about responding to you, and you also have a way of correcting them without the e-collar, making it more personal, giving them more of a social correction. You don't have to have the e-collar on them in the house for the rest of their life if you're gonna practice a recall, because you know you have a way of enforcing it. Same if you're out in your backyard and it's a relatively small space and it's enclosed and your dog can't run away from you. But again, out and about, just have it on them just in case. It's kind of like your seat belt. We just put our seat belt on when we drive because just in case we get in an accident, we want to be safe. And then remember what we said at the beginning of the video. There's two things that motivate your dog to recall. The first is getting a reward from you, and the second is to avoid correction, to avoid a consequence. So don't forget about the reward. Make it fun for your dog to come back. Like, be happy, play with them, reward them. If your reward is really valuable, then you probably won't have to correct them for not listening as much because your dog actually likes to do it. The type of recall we've been going over, your dog's name, come, we call that the formal recall. We just call it formal because there's a lot of rules involved. Your dog has to do a lot of stuff, right? They gotta come all the way back, they gotta stop, they gotta stay with you until you release them. If you wanna more casually call your dog, so let's say you're out on a hike, your dog starts to wander too far away from you, and you don't necessarily want to ask them to come all the way back, or you don't want to have to enforce that. You just want your dog to come closer towards you. Just say their name. We call this the informal recall or the casual recall, right? So if you say Riley, and if your dog's name is Riley, all your dog has to do is move in your direction, right? They got to acknowledge you, they got to come back towards you, but they don't have to come all the way back to you. Charlie. 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 And you can certainly still reward your dog even if you give them the informal casual recall. So if you just say your dog's name and they do come all the way back to you, it's not gonna hurt to reward them there. But the point is, if you just call your dog's name and they run towards you, but then they run past you, you don't have to correct them for that because you didn't ask them to come all the way back.